You're good to go.
Thank you very much. We'll now call the order of the December 5th Justice Resource Advisory Council meeting to order. Thank you all for being with us today. We don't have Regina here. She is suffering from the same cold I think 80% of us have right now. So thanks for showing up anyway. But I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Certainly present myself, Sybil.
Here.
Oscar. Sylvia is not with us, to my knowledge. Jalissa, welcome.
Oscar's present.
Advised us he would be in Raleigh today. I'd also informed he would not be here. Sam Steve, from Chief Public Defender.
Here.
Donald we need to adjust because we are now joined for her first meeting. Angie Garner, thank you for being here with us. On that, we also need to change Chief Lamb, just the day of updating titles. But we're joined by Deputy Chief Artema. Thank you for being with us. Julia Horrocks is also going to be rolling off, but we have a couple folks who are interested in that position, so we'll talk about that when we get there. Daniel Conway from Treatment Groups. City Representative also needs to change as of this morning. It's the day of announcing news. The good news is I know the person who's taking her place, so we'll see if we can rope her into another county meeting. Maggie Ullman was texting me. She should be here shortly, so we'll count her as present. Michael Greer is at a Chiefs meeting, informed us he would not be here. Dustin Dow. Clerk report Christie. Judge Keppel, I believe, may be a little bit late, but I was texting her shortly before the meeting. And David Sweat here. Thank you, David. Anyone I'm missing? Excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and get rolling. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda for the day? Anything that was not on there that we previously discussed having on? If not, I'm going to make one motion to restructure this and move the vice chair nomination election to the end of the meeting so we can jump right into what is going to be a jam-packed meeting, strategic plan wise. Any objection to that? Seeing none. Any objection or adjustments to the minutes? I can just take consensus for approval of our October 3rd meeting minutes. All right. Approve those. So as y'all know, we've done a lot of work around the strategic plan and figuring out where we're going to go, figuring out what the county's greater public safety needs are, and figuring out how we best kind of rechart how this board and committees associated can be a value add on the many, many goals that we've set out for ourselves. And a big part of that has been brainstorming. I think we're going to actualize some of that today with Dr. Lee Creighton guiding us through a strategic plan discussion, or rather follow-up at this point. Thank you for joining us, Lee, and please feel free to jump in.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be working with you all this afternoon. Like Commissioner Moore said, we hope to really solidify a good part of the strategic plan. Just to level set everybody again, what we're aiming to do is create a 2-year strategic plan for the Justice Resource Advisory Council. And the intention here is the work in this plan won't happen in this room necessarily, but what we're asking JRAC to do is provide guidance to its committees, to the membership and departments and offices that are a part of JRAC, some direction of goals and things to work on over the next 2 years. So what we did last time at the last meeting is we had the JRAC put up onto a wall some things that they would like to see JRAC take on in this strategic plan. And so what we did afterwards is worked a little bit to wordsmith some things. So it is that kind of guidance and direction to committees and work groups. So I want to go through the updated board with you all here in a moment, but just to let you know where we hope to get today is we want to confirm what's on the wall and make sure that everybody is good with what we want to move forward. We also want to talk about who you all see as best fit to lead the work forward, right? And to actually do the work of these goals that have been created. Okay, and time permitting, I know we got a slammed agenda. We'll also talk about some measures because we do want to tie some measures to each of these items, okay, so that we can track how well things are going and what our impact is after this work is complete, okay? So let's review the wall. I know it's small, so please, if you need to move closer, please feel free to do that. But I'm gonna read through each of these. After we took a look what was put on the wall at the last meeting, we were able to bucket them into kind of 4 areas of work. The first area is behavioral health. Under behavioral health, we have review law enforcement utilization of the behavioral health urgent care and provide recommendations for expanding its usage. Also, under behavioral health, we have review inpatient treatment bed capacity data and provide recommendations for expansions of beds. Okay. Under community engagement, we have make recommendations for engaging individuals with lived experience. We also have review domestic violence, sexual assault data with partners and recommend strategies to reduce domestic violence and sexual assault. Third, we have review juvenile detention data with partners and recommend engagement strategies to reduce juvenile detention costs. And then fourth, we have review arrests and court data by region, demographic, and socioeconomic data and develop recommendations to reduce disparities. Under courts, we have review and recommend programs to facilitate implementation of mental health wellness alternatives to incarceration. Second, we have create standards for case management. And then fourth, under law enforcement, we have developed processes to facilitate implementation of a law enforcement assisted diversion program, LEAD. Second, we have identify additional co-responder resources and make recommendations to address other barriers to expansion. And then third, we have explore a protocol for connecting offenders to services in domestic violence incidents when a primary aggressor is identified. Okay, so just a few questions for you all to get us started here. So are anything up on the wall that I read, does anybody need clarification or have questions about any of this? I have one. Go ahead, Dave.
Just one observation that under community engagement, that top one.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just struck me as, is that not something that would be best done by infusing it across like all things?
Everything.
Could you read it again, that first one?
Yeah, it's make recommendations for engaging individuals with lived experience.
I think that's a great point, and I think the vision there would be to create a group of individuals with lived experience who can function across all of these and beyond. They could kind of be our sounding board, if you will, for giving feedback. So it wouldn't just be limited to community engagement. It's just because we're pulling people from the community, it would be the work of that group to get those folks together. That makes sense.
No, it does make sense. It just struck me as, it seems like in every area, if we had some kind of involvement of people with lived experience, it would improve everything. This is just my only thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we might could put some clarifying language on the end of that to say something along the lines of, you know, engaging individuals with lived experience kind of in kind of justice system.
Yeah, all facets.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other clarifying or questions or comments? I have one, just based off some of the conversation I had with some of my colleagues. I believe this is this review inpatient bed treatment bed capacity and provide recommendations for expansion. I believe this might have been a conversation that happened at the sequential intercept mapping project. And I'm curious, do we have a definition for what type of inpatient beds we're most concerned about? Or is any feedback in the room on that?
Well, and I know Victoria's at the Sims as well, but some of that, I think, around multiple inpatient facilities, which I think and Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the discussion was around detox, rehabilitation beds. You know, we had one state facility shut down, so now we're down to 2 state facilities for detox and rehab. So that really has definitely amped up an issue with limited beds and increased wait lists.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. Is there anything up here that I read through that concerns anybody in this room in terms of its feasibility or gives anybody pause?
I don't have anything about that. I just wanna kind of piggyback off Angie. I think mental health specific beds is definitely a need we have.
And probably maybe with that, even like the dual diagnosis.
Dual diagnosis,
Yeah.
okay. Is there anything that we're missing? Is there anything on here that you've been thinking about or is on your radar that you don't feel is addressed up here that you feel like is an immediate need that does need to be addressed? My last question is, again, keeping in mind 2 years, right? Does all of this work up here feel doable? Do you have any concerns about, do we need to go through a process to pare this back in any way, shape, or form? Or do folks feel good about this?
Well, I'd love to expand the number of mental health beds. I mean, I'm not sure that's doable, but it needs to be on our.
Be worked
plate,
on.
Right.
Correct.
We need to keep pressing because the system is just broken.
And you know, this isn't meant to say we're gonna fix it all in 2 years, right? But in terms of priorities to work on, is this feel like a manageable amount of priorities and goals to have?
Is there anyone here that's like community engagement focused? That one just has the most goals.
It does have the most
There's
goals.
not really.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Can you read those 4 again?
Yeah,
it's hard to read.
Yeah, so make recommendations for engaging individuals with lived experience. And again, with the addition of a kind of across the body of work under JRAC strategic plan. Review domestic violence and sexual assault data with partners and recommend strategies to reduce those. Review juvenile detention data with partners and recommend engagement strategies to reduce juvenile detention costs. And then review arrests and court data by region, demographic, and socioeconomic status, and develop recommendations to reduce disparities.
Would we be assuming that this work going on in a subcommittee or
Correct.
something along those lines?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're talking about a 2-year plan, spending 6 months to a year reviewing data and 6 months to a year developing and implementing recommendations doesn't seem entirely unfeasible. Maybe less.
All right, well, hearing none, we're gonna, you can ignore the dots in front of you because we're gonna move forward with all this today. So what we want to do next, so we're gonna keep these here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to add to them. And so what we first want to do is talk about, well, who is going to be the responsible party? And so we have our goal, we have our responsible party. Okay, so I'm gonna move the board around real quick. Now, we did do some preliminary work to provide, to think about based off of kind of the existing work groups that we know of and that are happening in under JRAC, as well as other existing efforts. Tried to take a shot at what the responsible party is. And so what I'm going to do is for each of these, I'm going to put underneath here, underneath these, where we think this work could live and want to just get your confirmation, or if you feel that there is a better suited responsible party to move the work forward, okay? So under the review, the LEO utilization of behavioral health urgent care data and provide recommendations for expanding usage. We have under here the Behavioral Health and Justice Collaborative, and perhaps even underneath them, the CIT Steering Committee, because we know that's where a lot of these conversations have already been happening. And so does anybody have any disagreement there? Who is best suited to move that conversation forward? Does that seem like a good fit? I keep looking at Victoria. This is your chance, Victoria. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, we have review inpatient treatment bed capacity data and provide recommendations for expansion of beds. And we also have that under the Behavioral Health and Justice Collaborative. Folks feel good there.
We can at least have those conversations and see what we can move forward.
All right, so now we have community engagement, which is our biggest group. Well, my wall is not quite big enough, so we'll test here. So making recommendations for engaging individuals with lived experience. So under the bylaws of JRAC, there is a community engagement work group. And so that was where, and kind of we immediately went with this one. Is there any other group that comes to mind that we should consider for a responsible party of moving, taking a look at where and how individuals with lived experience can engage across the efforts of JRAC in this strategic plan?
No one's here from that group, so.
No one's here from that group, so they're gonna get it, right?
Right. Wait, are you? No, okay.
All right, we also have the community engagement work group but also the coordinated community response work group, which is another work group under JRAC to lead the efforts to review domestic violence and sexual assault data and recommend strategies to reduce those. Does anybody see that differently?
So would that be both of them working together?
Well, that's a good question.
Is
That-
that okay?
That could be, yeah. I think who is best suited, it could be either one of these potentially. Anybody from CCR?
In the past, yeah, during the FJC formation. CCR has been around, I'd like to say, longer than the other work group.
Mhm.
It's probably better.
Better suited?
Better
suited for that.
All right, our next one is looking at juvenile detention data and making recommendations to reduce juvenile detention costs. And we have the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council here under this one. Seeing a lot of nods. No, I don't. Where is there? Okay.
Yes, I sit on the council, and I chair the community group as well. So we do review the yearly data, come out of the screenings to set our funding priorities each year. Right now, we're in the 2-year funding priority. So we did the other day, to our funding priorities. But again, it does make sense with the data that we collect, and I can bring that back to Sylvia.
Okay.
And I think this is specifically around the detention costs, like in that. So a little bit nuanced from what JCPC normally does.
Correct, and I will say that we normally don't review detention costs in the data that we receive. So that that's a conversation definitely on how that would look.
Maybe TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our costs in detention, inflationary costs, are there actual, well, people make consent?
It's based on, the usage, so it's more individual staying for longer periods of time, of my understanding. And we budget for that, every year in our budget, and I think we've spent all of our budget this year already. And we're only, half through.
And with some of that change in the law that we're
Yes.
now used, that are, okay, yep. the
Some of
overspending
that
too.
is, and I think we need to dig in deeper to really.
And in some of those cases, you gotta pick your poison.
Yeah.
Those costs are borne by the county for those longer stays, but the kids might otherwise be in prison. So we need to, and
Yeah.
I think our juvenile justice department does a really good job of making those decisions,
Mhm.
properly making those decisions. I think that they're a very good partner in that.
They're there to give us input.
We can do some homework.
We can, yeah.
All right, and this last one is review arrests and court data by, and make recommendations to reduce disparities. Here we've got community engagement work group as potential. Is there another group out there, or is there a group that needs to be established to be able to do this work moving forward? Or is community engagement the right place for that to land?
Disparities now with the new law that's come to pass, disparities separate and apart from what we typically think is, racial disparities, which is one of the reasons that was created, I assume. Now there's going to be a classification of particularly recidivist, where the new law says that if you have 3 prior qualifying misdemeanor convictions in the last 10 years, and you pick up any charge, you're not eligible for unsupervised or unsecured bond. You must have a secured bond. And so and there are situations where someone could pick up a class 2 misdemeanor, not be eligible for an attorney under state law, but also not eligible for an unsecured bond. And so they could sit unrepresented for their next court date under a secured bond. And we've got to deal with that. And I think that those disparities, when you're talking about making the community safer, I think those disparities are just going to cost the county a great deal of money. So I think that our case review committee, I think the DA's office is, giving us a pretty good partner in our case review weekly meetings, but we're going to have to put a lot more emphasis on those case reviews and those weekly meetings to see if we can work with the DA's office to try to move some of these these folks out. But anyway, this is just came down.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to be clear.
Knowing the impacts are,
Monday.
yeah.
And y'all's doing a great job. I have to tell you.
There's been a lot this week.
I've been telling Chief Scott what a great job that is.
So, Sam, would you recommend, yeah,
Sam, do you recommend, like, you mentioned that case review team, is this an effort that maybe we could expand that case review team to include not just case review, but also looking at data and trends on?
We're gonna have to do something. I mean, when the county asked us for numbers this week, and we started looking at numbers and then looking at ways that we could help automate the reporting of numbers, this automatically came up because we knew that one particular piece of information that the county wants are those who've been released within 4 days of their, initial arrest. And we think that those numbers are going to go up dramatically. Again, with the more serious crimes, the bonds really haven't changed. In other words, if you have a crime that would result in a $25,000 bond, that's no different really than it did before. But when you're hamstrung and letting people out on unsecured bonds on low-level crimes, you're just going to have to deal with that population being in the jail days, maybe weeks more than they would be ordinarily.
So what I put is like the idea of expanding the jail review team to include that data review kind of at a more detention level setting. Does anybody see that differently or have other ideas about where this could go?
The only thing I think of is just even if it's partnering with, like, what's the behavioral health? What are some of those driving causes, or what is it that folks might need to prevent the ongoing? And just knowing that piece about Ariana's law and with the mental health evaluations and how that might affect, like, that may even prolong timing because they're not getting the assessments quickly enough. So I don't think the BHAC to take a lead, but be a partner maybe in as data is being looked at. What's maybe some next steps?
Can I just add something? So I'm on the jail review team, and we just had a call yesterday with the DA's office, or with the DA assigned to the jail review team, Mike Casterline. This came up yesterday. So the DA's office is willing to, we're talking about what we can do with that report that we get every week. On the, the report's kind of filtered out a certain way, but they're on it, is basically what I want to say. Like, we talked about it yesterday, and we're trying to see, we're trying to stay on that and see what we can do to kind of, the numbers and what's going on with that.
Something that's gonna really impact behavioral health is we cannot give custody releases like to RHA to go to treatment if it's one of the offenses that is enumerated in the new law as well. So there was a wonderful RHA plan the other day to go to ADAC and have the bond can't unsecure it. Now I can reduce the bond significantly. Doesn't make, I can put it at $1 as long as it's secured. We need to think about that.
Right.
I don't want to do it now because if I do it now, they'll probably come up with a law that won't let me do that, but
Right.
it'll happen. But it's just going to impact getting folks out to go get treatment.
These are all great. I mean, all of these conversations are exactly what these responsible parties will need to be thinking about as they're working through these goals. Moving on to courts, under this bucket here. Review and recommend programs to facilitate implementation of mental health wellness alternatives to incarceration. Any thoughts about where this could live? I'll let you know that my piece of paper here says courts. Does anybody see that differently?
No.
Okay. Surprise. Okay, next we have create standards for case management. Any thoughts about, is that courts as well? Is it more specific? Is it specific court actors? Judges?
So like case management for.
I think this is probably case processing type standards.
And we struggled with that one. We didn't want to make it too vague, but also, yeah, so if you guys have edits to that, we would, kind of big.
That's gonna go under courts. If we're talking about criminal case management. Going forward.
So courts is the right spot. Don't want to get.
I mean, we're gonna have situations, I think, where we're gonna have to have some kind of preliminary, you can't have people, again, anticipating the fact that people may be incarcerated longer on minor charges. You're gonna have some valve there in terms of case management. It can't be just, oh, we're gonna continue it because you're not ready or someone can't be available. Right. And so, and if there's unable to, this is a pretrial detention. It's not even, anyway. So yes, we're gonna have to, I think, figure out something to do with, particularly with the low level cases. Yeah. Dismissing a probable cause if they're not ready. You got a drug case where you're waiting for a drug lab and it's a simple possession and they're in custody. There's nothing you can do about it. You got to wait months for a drug lab. What do? You can't give them an unsecured bond. So we've got to have to figure out something.
So there's like a definite tie here between these two as well.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
And right now the jail review team is comprised of DA's office, public defender's office, pretrial detention. All right, last bucket here. Identify additional co-responder resources and make recommendations to address barriers to expansion. Does this go to law enforcement agencies? Are there existing groups that are already talking about co-response and ways to expand it?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah, I think with
Yeah.
the crisis intervention team.
Crisis intervention team? Okay.
Who's
So-
our crisis intervention team?
Lori. Oh, wait,
Or
Leslie Whitson,
maybe more like agency-wide.
Via.
Via Health, yes, there we go, yes.
Okay, so the behavioral health and then the CIT steering committee potentially under them?
We also, in related to the co-responder resources, we do have quarterly co-response meeting with VIA and with law enforcement as well. Just to review data and to talk about any new allocations that may be coming down. And so that is something that we could take on as well to discuss. And we've been having this discussion.
And is that part of CIT steering or is that separate?
It's a
Okay,
separate.
so would that what do you think is best suited then?
Yeah, I'm thinking, really, I'm wondering if we could link it to the CIT steering committee to keep this smaller.
But isn't it, it's kind of grant based at this moment.
Correct.
So then,
Yes.
I'm gonna put via next to,
My understanding is there's some challenges and barriers that need to kind of be overcome before that can be expanded, and I think the subcommittees that we're on are really trying to tackle that in a very managed but understanding way, so I think that we're working.
so in these discussions. Okay, great. Next, we have develop processes to facilitate implementation of a law enforcement assisted diversion program. Does this live with law enforcement agencies? Is there another?
Think you would have to.
Any specific agency, or can we get a little more specific?
Think the district attorney would probably,
And DA?
yeah.
Okay.
Pre-charge, you have exclusive. But they haven't been charged yet, that's all.
and I wonder what are what lead, I mean, co-response is kind of a whole different model, but is the same end result? Or is there a different kind of?
It's different. So lead is they've committed a crime,
Gotcha.
clearly committed a crime, and it's pre-arrest diversion.
But what are the diversion opportunities that you'd look at?
That's the question.
Okay,
That's why I don't think should necessarily be law enforcement alone.
Is it
Where do
something
we-
that,
Where do I divert them
Co-
to?
is it somehow connected to co-response? Is it like
I
in
mean,
terms of
could be,
those
yeah.
same resources?
And these are all excellent questions.
It could be
Just
collaborative.
as services.
Could be here.
Well, yeah, because there's a case management element to it, and so where does that case manager live? So I think that's what
So maybe justice services can take lead in pulling everybody together and meeting with the different law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, we want to keep that separate.
All right, and then finally, we have explore a protocol for connecting offenders to services in domestic violence incidents when a primary aggressor is identified on the scene. So this definitely has law enforcement component. Is there a place where law enforcement DVSA conversations can happen? Or is this solely law enforcement? There's reliance on resources that exist in the community that are outside of law enforcement. Any thoughts?
Talking about offenders.
I have law enforcement, yes. But I have other little sheets up here that say other things.
What's the fundamental outcome we want from that goal?
I think from my reading of it, is to connect more folks who are perpetrating domestic violence
So
and sexual assault into services and supports. earlier in the process.
But still post arrest,
Still post arrest.
so.
We have data on like the percentage of perpetrators that are substance use involved.
Not that I'm
Look at the Rita
aware
to
of.
see if she has
Do you
on the
have
spot, if
anything?
you have any.
I mean, I think that if we're thinking about the folks that are working with perpetrators, it would be Spark. I think CCRT has like an interesting constellation of folks because you have Spark represented, you have public defenders, you have a lot of different folks that are doing perpetrator side, but you also have folks that are doing victim side. So CCRT might be an interesting place to do that. And I'm the executive director of Our Voice, so we're working with survivors of sexual violence and human trafficking. The primary therapist that's working with sex offenders, is in private practice. We don't have any nonprofits that are doing that work, but Spark is doing DV offender work.
So I heard you say coordinated community response
I
team.
think that makes sense to me, but I don't know what other people think.
I just don't know that post arrest will be that long.
Okay.
Truly, I think that would be more behavioral health maybe, or I don't know, but I don't think it would be long. Or, I mean,
On the scene, so it's identifying a primary aggressor on the scene. What I think about is the LAP protocol.
Yeah.
A similar, but a offender side of the LAP. So when the LAP happens and if somebody is determined to be a high lethality victim, there's a protocol in place where law enforcement can make a direct connection to helpmate on the scene. So that that person is getting connected to the support that they that may need, right?
And I think primary aggressor training is part of that training.
To identify the primary aggressor. So I think that what this is really speaking to is, well, we have something for the person, the victim. Can we develop something similar to the person perpetrating the violence so that they're getting connected to resources? So
at the scene.
at the scene.
I guess it's targeted because
Yeah.
Encourage managers to do that.
That's-
Really,
yeah.
if I were their attorney, I would not encourage. Yeah, that's a liability.
So is this coming off?
I mean,
Should we get rid of it?
no, I wouldn't get rid of it.
But law enforcement isn't the one doing
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's not an on the scene activity, like the first few lines is fine, it's just you get on the scene is when I start having a lot of.
Well, if it's post arrest, there are things that kick in with regards to what you say can be held against you, like have they been Mirandized, like so. It just goes into some murky waters with regards to their rights and what they say. I'll just put it in a
it. What's
Right, I mean, it does happen in DV court, right? I mean, there's Spark and that's where the agreements are made.
Okay.
And so, if we want to recommit to some diversion, because, there's a lot of gray areas in that stuff.
But
A lot of complicated gray areas in
But
domestic
you're-
violence.
wanting to kick it in quicker. than
right.
Yeah,
First
trying
appearance.
to like figure out a key intervention point before someone gets too far into a pipeline. I think that's like the intent.
So,
So I think we should also look at the DV FRT results. So the domestic violence fatality review team that we have here. We have reviewed 3, maybe 4, I can't recall, I'm sorry. I think we should go back because then there's Rebecca Smith does a presentation to the commissioners about the recommendations. So I think it would be good to look at the fatalities that we've reviewed because we have discussed this. And maybe let's go back and look at what they recommended as well. And then also what you said, Spark, that's in place. So that's, service, but yeah.
Okay.
Maybe starting there.
Okay, and we can do some homework, but right now, for just the sake of our kind of tracking, sounds like it might, even if it's in the court bucket, coordinated community response might be the entity that could.
I think that sounds.
Or like on the other side of
Yeah.
the
I'll
court.
say, like, we would love to have a seat at that table, because, one of our primary focuses are repeat violent offenders, because the disproportionate amount of victimization they do. So we have a vested interest in
Yeah.
reducing repeat offenders and recidivists in that regard.
And I would never want to give the magistrates any more to do because they have plenty. But if there's like, I know this sounds a little, but some information that can just be like, here,
Right.
here's a number to call.
Right now, all we have is the help make cards that we can pass off. Got it. But to have more to pass off. Okay, that's good feedback.
I do wonder what role CPRV could play in community health workers because they are able to respond both to victims and perpetrators. So they would be an interesting entity. I mean, Spark has representation at CCRT and CPRV. I can't think if there's other partners that also have that overlap, but just trying to think through like what are reasonable resources for perpetrators to address their violence. Like community health workers are kind of what I would think would be a helpful resource.
So I'm gonna mark this one. We're gonna do a little bit of homework on this one.
Yeah.
But right now we have it under court with coordinated community response being the entity that's gonna be responsible. Awesome. How am I doing on time, Vanessa? We can talk about measures.
So excited.
Yes. Okay, so this was, thank you all for working all through this. So this is really, if we can get through this, we're gonna be coming back to you all in February with something that's pretty much complete for you all to vote on. For each of these goals here, we want to create a measure, again, for the purposes of understanding how well we're doing. Understanding that some of this work is not gonna, there's gonna be a lot of planning and things that go into this work, a lot of kind of problem solving. So we might not see immediate impact, or we probably won't see immediate impact on any of these, but it gives us a point to anchor on to understand when we do implement things, what are we gonna look at, right? Okay, so for this goal around law enforcement utilization, of the behavioral health urgent care, did a little bit of brainstorming beforehand as a potential measure. I want to get y'all's feedback. Number of law enforcement drop-offs at the BHUC by agency. Is that data that I believe it's data that we track and have available?
Yes.
Does that sound like it's a good tie to this measure? Anything?
Like quite a bit of data around the BHUC.
Awesome. The inpatient bed treatment capacity data and looking at ways to expand that. Brainstorm beforehand led to an idea for tracking the number of inpatient bed days provided. So we have X many beds, how many a days were those beds occupied during a period of time? Is that a doable measure and something that we can track?
We, VIA can track we have a contract with all of Medicaid enrolled psychiatric and substance use mental health beds. But if they are enrolled through Medicaid, we have the contract. So we are able to track our members. We aren't able to track other members. And so that there are a fair amount of other members as well in the other Medicaid plans and some of the other MCOs as well. But we can come in with our part if that is helpful.
Any thoughts on the other part or a potential other?
Victoria, what do you think about the other,
The other goal about the diversion,
beyond what VIA tracks?
In terms of bed days?
the bed data. Yeah, I don't know where we'd be able to really capture that information yet. I mean, I think we can kind of reach out to the standard health plans, the other ones, to kind of get kind of what they have available to see what's possible.
Okay.
Do we have a sense proportionally of like what percentage of your data will account for?
Some, yes. We are able to extrapolate certain types of data that we could pull, what's in standard plan around the VHUC, I will say. Not around Part D, for instance, they have detox. The hospital systems, it's not as easy, but because of the contract in RHA's behavioral health service provider, with our contract with them, we can pull that piece out. That's not going to be indicative of all.
So it sounds like we'll do some homework on this to see if it is a feasible measure, but is there agreement that if we can get a good, we might not get the full picture, but if we can get enough of the picture, we feel like this would be a good measure to track for.
Do you have someone that you are supposed to report that data to at the state, for instance, or is it really just, it stops with you?
It does not stop with us. We have a lot of reporting that we have to do with the state and the feds.
Right.
So there might
We
be.
can identify who you report to, then can we do data requests to that entity for this data for Buncombe County?
Sure, I can get with our data folks to see, but you can imagine as you all do, there are multiple
Oh, yeah.
data, yes. So I can't promise any of that.
No, but if we can identify who gets the report,
Right.
then we can work with Mark Goodwin and IT and stuff and craft a data request.
Sure, yes, I can get some of the, yes, we can look into that, is what I can say.
I mean, because that's the other way to get data is who does it
Who
go
does it go
to?
to? Yeah. Sam, you had it.
Well, also the pretrial statutes put more demand on determining prior IBC history. It's coming, isn't it?
In a year.
Yeah, it's
In 2026.
And I would treat that as an inpatient bed related to criminal justice. So, what that means, what that's gonna mean ultimately, it's kind of hard to decipher, in my opinion. But it seems to be that there's some will, unfunded, to divert people to IVC beds. Because that, to me, would be the implication, right? But that's like $1,800 a day or something. I mean, that's what I hear, that that hospitalization bed is about that much. And so that's borne by the state, but the legislature created this thing, but hasn't funded expanding beds at Broughton or Sweet Creek, as far as I know. I don't know how that works. That's very complicated. But that's coming. And it needs, and if we're gonna properly address those who are legitimately mentally ill, which there are many people, as we know, we're gonna have to figure that out, how it's gonna work into our system in a year. So we've got time.
I think we also need to look into getting data from the VA on the veterans in their psych detox unit and their inpatient 28-day.
We have via,
Good resource.
Yeah. I mean, Asheville's got the biggest unhoused veteran population in the state, so, veteran population is usually small, but it's pretty big out here.
Might also be relevant to look at how many beds do we actually need if we're actually going to address the entire population that needs mental health care.
like what the actual need is.
Well, yeah, you might find that, if we implement a system like that, there might not be the capacity to provide that healthcare.
There's not the capacity to deal with it. And we're nowhere near the capacity. We've been over,
And then what do we?
we've lacked capacity for a decade or more.
Probably ever since deinstitutionalization. That's what
Right.
really
It's
the-
got, it's just utterly broken right now.
6 minutes. All right. We got 6 more minutes. We're not gonna get through all of these. But we've got some homework to do. And then we've already, so we'll continue to fine tune this. So I think what we'll do is we good to stop, you good if we stop here, Sybil? Yeah. And then just to let you all know what next steps are gonna be. So, what we wanna do, we're gonna do some homework on some of these. I've marked the ones specifically that we've talked about today that we need to do some follow-up on. So we'll probably be reaching out to folks to get some more information or have some conversations. Our aim is to have something drafted the first of the year. You all will get it. Is it fair to say we can get it to them beforehand of that Friday or February meeting? and give you all a chance to provide feedback. And what our plan will be is in the February meeting, which is the next JRAC meeting, is have a finalized version that you all will then vote on and consider. So one final question, in looking at anything up here, we've talked a lot about all of these pieces at this point. Is there anything that concerns you? Is there any, this is the chance, if you want to take anything off the wall, to take it off the wall. Well, thank you all for doing this and engaging in this process. And we'll look forward to continuing to get this together and then presenting it to you in final.
One more thing, so we mentioned that the idea is that these would go with either existing work groups or maybe there's a need to form a new work group. But you know, it will require some leadership, some folks to step up and kind of chair, and we already have chairs, but some of the new groups are gonna need some structure, some chairs. So if you're interested and willing to lead some of these, please be thinking that's gonna be the next step once we adopt. We're gonna be part of it. Martin has stepped out. And so.
Tom is on, Tom Everly from
Okay.
JMI. I think he was next. He is prepared if you're ready for that.
Someone like to lead the meeting, who's, that we don't have a vice chair. No. That's why I'm.
Do you need me to do something? What do you need me to do? Tom's up next. I read that.
Should I go? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, so you can hear me. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Eberly. I'm with the Justice Management Institute, and joining me is Denise Chandler, also with the Justice Management Institute. And for the past couple of years, we've also served as your site coordinator for the Safety and Justice Challenge. And the Safety and Justice Challenge is wrapping up here in the next, I say, 6 to 12 months. And one of the things that we were interested in proposing to the council was the idea of doing an assessment of the JRAC, which is something that other jurisdictions who have participated in the Safety and Justice Challenge have done as well. And I just want to double check that you can all hear me.
And
Okay, excellent. So if I can share my slides with you, please. Did everyone see that okay?
yeah.
Excellent. So I'd like to give you an overview of the project itself. The purpose of the assessment is to look at your council and see how it aligns with national best practices. And it's really what you would consider like a gap analysis. And the whole idea of doing this exercise is to figure out if your council is operating as effectively as possible based on what we know that works really well in other high-performing CJCCs. And when we do this type of work, we ultimately hope that it does enhance the members' participation and engagement with the council, and that it helps you operate and structure your business in a way that it's much more productive, and so that people feel like the participation on the council is worth their time, and that the council is actually accomplishing things. And then what we also like to do, and we realize you just went through a strategic planning process, is also to just kind of get a sense of what your priority areas are and then share them back with you when we talk to individuals on your council. And what we use to perform the assessment is the national standards that was produced by JMI and the National Institute of Corrections and came out a couple years ago. The standards outline best practices in a number of areas. And it also enabled us to create an assessment tool that lets us look at how a particular CJCC compares to those standards. And it's really been found beneficial because even though you could have a very high performing CJCC, there still might be some little nuances that can be enhanced. If you find that your CJCC could just be enhanced in some regards, it's not necessarily perfect. It's really nice to get that feedback objectively, and then we will provide some recommendations in terms of what we see working really well in other jurisdictions. And so if you're to decide to proceed with the assessment, and again, this would be covered as part of the Safety and Justice Challenge. The way it works is that we would do interviews, one-on-one interviews, confidential interviews with each of the JRAC members. We'd also follow that up with a survey to match the qualitative information that we heard from the interviews with some quantitative numbers to kind of back that up. And then we also review any historical documents that you may have, observed meetings, and look at the general activities that have taken place over the last few years. And then we also like to observe meetings and just see how things are actually operating. And the project usually takes about 5 to 6 months. We usually have a kickoff meeting. This could potentially serve as a kickoff meeting. And then we start scheduling interviews with the members, followed by the survey that I mentioned. And then we kind of give you a rough idea of what we're hearing from the interviews and the survey, and try to get your feedback at that point in time, and make sure that we're hearing the right things and make sure that we're missing anything. And then we'll draft a report that's usually about 20 pages long, and it will go through different aspects that you find in the national standards. We'll give you that draft report, give you a chance to review it. You can make suggestions for edits, and then we'll produce a final report and share that with you. So the assessment report itself is an objective review. It provides written findings in key areas. It also will contain recommendations that are very achievable. We like to make the recommendations something that every council could do in the next 6 to 12 months. So it's not some kind of pie in the sky or something that has a big price tag associated with it. It really is just recommendations in terms of how to make your meetings more productive, how to organize your committees better, and so forth. And then we also share with you, even though you just went through a strategic plan, some priority areas that we heard shared by the members so that you can think about those as well. And just to give you a sense of what we look at, we're looking at, is your council systemic in nature? Do you have good participation? Do you have strong leadership? Is there consensus building occurring? Are your meetings organized and occurring at a time and place that are productive for folks? We also look at your committees and work groups to make sure that they're functioning well, your strategic plan, how well you use data and research, how well you engage the community, and then how the director and staff tie into all of this and support the work that you're doing. And so that's the core elements that we look at when we do the assessment. And again, we're using this to compare you to the national standards and where we see opportunities to potentially make improvements. And maybe after the assessment, you might find that you don't need that many. Here, I just want to show you a quick example, and this is just a summary chart. It's not obviously the report, but this was another jurisdiction where we came in and we use a rating scale developed with the National Institute of Corrections and kind of get a sense of how things are going in those different areas that I just shared with you, and then present the factors that are not present where you could potentially see improvement in your council once you get the results. So what we'd like to ask you is if you would like to proceed with the assessment, if you feel like it would be beneficial and necessary. And then we'd start reaching out to Regina and her team, looking at historical documents. We realize that a lot of your materials are on your website, which is fantastic. And then start the process of engaging each of you in the interview process and setting up a time. The interviews take about 45 minutes to complete. And so that's the pitch, so to speak, in terms of what we'd like to come in and help you do. I'll just kind of give you a sense of what we usually hear when we do stuff like this. We usually go into a jurisdiction and people will say stuff like, well, the meetings aren't productive enough. I wish the meetings were more productive. Or I wish everyone was participating. And so we kind of work with you to kind of address those things. And some people actually serve on the council. This is shocking. And they're like, I don't know why I'm on this council. I don't understand what the council does. We actually hear that quite a bit. And so doing an assessment like this can be very beneficial in kind of closing those gaps and get everyone on the same page and moving in the same direction.
Hey, Tom, so you said the interviews are just 45 minutes. Is that the max ask for our JRAC members? Is there anything else they need to be aware of?
There will be a brief survey after all the interviews are completed, and that usually takes 5 to 8 minutes at most.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I think that you will hear feedback about participation and the value of the meetings. So I would welcome feedback on that.
The cost and timeline.
I think it's free, right, Tom? This is part of your.
Yes. It's part of the Safety and Justice Challenge from the MacArthur Foundation, so there's no cost associated with it.
And if you started in January, you'd be done sometime this summer, July?
Correct.
I'm gonna speak freely.
Please.
It would probably look better to MacArthur if we completed this, question mark.
No, it has no bearing on that.
Okay, well, again, I'm gonna continue speaking freely. I suspect, having been a new member who feels all the things that you did, that I don't know if we'll need an assessment as much as a real strategy conversation of like, do we want to do what's required to make this work? Because a collaborative ultimately needs buy-in, sleeves rolling up, our teams contributing, doing those type of things that, I don't know. I'm also just on a theme right now where we just spend a lot of time in planning and government and having a real fatigue of that. So this is also me being the new person, being like, I'm gonna ask uncomfortable questions that maybe you all, having invested so much more time than me, have more really nuanced interpretation or understanding of what's being proposed. But would this help you learn more to get more out of this? Question mark, Dean?
When you say that, you mean the assessment? Would the assessment help us learn more?
Because that's what this is, right? It's not necessarily a strategic planning to make the coalition more effective, right? We're doing strategic planning for our community outcomes, but this sounds like, how does the coalition function more effectively? And this assessment might point to that, but not necessarily point us on a path of how to fortify it, is my guess, right? Because as an assessment language, it's really that.
Having been on JROC from the beginning, I would agree with what you just said. I don't know that we need necessarily an assessment. I thought maybe assessment would help you folks, maybe not us. I think more of a strategic, collaborative, how are we all gonna work together to get our goals finished is probably more productive, but I agree.
Yeah.
I've been through several assessments.
there, you know, it's no hard sell.
Consultant who does assessments and who does strategic planning for collaboration, so I feel like I'm also just really being candid in a vulnerable space, but you know, my guess is the like recommitment to the coalition goals and really digging in and looking in the mirror of like, what do we wanna do about this? And maybe that's something Tom's team can help with too. Maybe it's more like a retreat about like getting real with what it takes and do we have the right people and should we actually spend 6 months recruiting the right people to the table? There's a lot of things that can be done. So I'm blowing up this agenda item, sorry, Sybil.
No, it's fine. I mean, this is up for discussion, so it's, you know.
As a community member who's also fairly new to JRAC, I want to say that I echo your sentiments. And these are real questions that I find in myself and also to the council as serving on as a community member in community engagement. I also share similar questions and feelings.
Yeah. Really. Hearing that there's not interest for moving forward with this, Tom. So I appreciate your time.
Sure.
If there's something else that we can do to help you, let us know.
Okay.
Do you all wanna, I'm not sure, but do we?
Yeah, thank you for your time. Tom, is there any other discussions or questions that we have for Tom before he can sign out?
I'm not a part of the group, but I would like to ask Tom a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tom, when you, Marvin Tronjak, I'm with the Housing Authority here in Asheville. When you produce the gap analysis, I'm assuming you give recommendations.
Yes, absolutely.
How often are those taken and what assessment do you do afterward to find out whether or not adherence to whatever you guys subscribe worked out and got the intended consequence?
So oftentimes we do stick around and kind of assist the jurisdiction with coaching and outlining an action plan for putting the recommendations forward. And again, we don't want to burden you with much more things to lift. We're really focusing on what can you do to tweak your council to get the most out of it. And so a lot of times it's very simple. Like we will revisit the membership and make sure that you have the right stakeholders at the table based on the conversations that we have with everyone. We would look at your strategic plan and make sure that it's of a certain quality that it will actually be implemented. We'll look at the leadership of the council and make sure that it's effective in terms of who's leading the council and that they're doing so in an effective manner that really engages all the stakeholders and so forth. So a lot of the recommendations are ways that you can make the meetings more productive. The recommendations are on structural things that you can do in terms of engaging the staff and the committees better. So it's really just solely about making the CJC or in your case of JRAC move an effective path forward.
Thank you.
Well, Tom, I do want to say thank you for all the work you have done for us. The
Sure.
past been wonderful. And I think this is something, you know, I think it's time sensitive for you all. You have to move forward with it. And it just sounds like maybe the timing doesn't match up with where we are at this point. But I do want to thank you and yeah, just thanks for reaching out to us.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
There's
Have a good day.
such support to like fast track beyond the assessment into the like distilling what could be done and then talking about that.
Yeah.
That might, you know, I'd have an appetite for digging into what to do. I don't know if others, but.
Thank you, Tom. I
Okay,
think we're gonna
thank you.
move on to our agenda. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Angie's up next. Thank you, Angie. Thanks.
Vanessa's gonna
I
run
don't think you have a question
by any means.
I'll make it.
Yeah, you try.
Definitely.
It was a great question. I was looking forward to the answer. Okay, thanks, everybody. Just move fast. Yep, you're good. I'll just, so I'm Angie Garner from VIA. And last JRAC, I believe, I wasn't able to make it. Of course, Donald was here. And I think there was a conversation at the end about housing. And I think Sybil had asked if we could come and just talk about VIA's housing and transition programs, because they, with discussion here in the county with the Just Home Grant, basically, we want to know what is VIA space, and what do we have in our purview, so the county knows how they need to move forward, and we don't want to duplicate services, or we need to know what services we don't have. So, in full disclosure, I don't work in the housing department, and it can be quite complicated when you're talking about PUD and grants, and if that's not your daily job. I've brought my wing woman along, Sarah Lancaster, who's a housing manager. So if there are questions that I definitely won't be able to answer, hopefully she can. And if there's something y'all ask, we don't know, we'll just have to take it back, and I'll bring it back to the group for sure. Okay. So, and I put this on Vanessa last minute to just not fairness to her. So we're going to talk about a few different programs. And the first housing program that we're going to talk about is the Olmstead program called Money Follows the Person. And you all did receive this PowerPoint in your agenda minutes. Now, I will say there are a few slides at the end that really shouldn't come over. I've deleted those. There was some data on there that wasn't fully correct yet about the VHUC. So you're going to get a new one, just to let you know that may not make sense. Okay, so one piece of our housing is called Olmstead, Money Follows the Person, and it's Transition Coordination Programs. We have 2 MFP programs. And basically, it's a statewide program for all 100 counties. And the Olmstead program is a program that helps older adults and people with physical disabilities who reside in skilled nursing facilities or a hospital setting, receiving a skilled level of care, and they're moving back into the community. So the qualifications to be able to receive this service would be you receive Medicaid, or you're eligible for Medicaid in North Carolina. This one, you don't have to be a VIA member. You live in a SNF, a skilled nursing facility, or a qualified hospital setting for at least 60 consecutive days. You also have to have a diagnosed physical disability and be over the age of 18, or above age 55 and want to live in the community. So this is great, Vanessa. So you had to be, when you're getting set up, one of the first ones you keep
I'm finished. You want me to move on?
Yeah, next one. Perfect.
Right here?
Okay, yes.
This one?
So I know, yes, thank you. Again, I know you can't read all this, and I'm not going to read every word on here. I just want to give everyone a broad stroke of the housing and what we have going on. So basically, since 2024, we've served over 600 individuals. We've transitioned 85 individuals since the launch of this, and 3 of the 30 participants in Buncombe County transitioned. The remaining are waiting for housing opportunities. So the housing type is moving these individuals into their own apartment, home, or into a family or caregiver's home. And they must be able to afford their own rent unless they receive a housing voucher. So you have to apply via the state. And like many programs that we have at VIA, we receive funding, we receive allocation from the state and from the feds. I know that's, again, a broad stroke over this program, but happy to answer more questions later. There's another piece of this Money Follows the Person program, which is specifically for individuals who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that's the next one. This one operates in 32 of our Western counties. And so some of the same, you have to receive Medicaid or be eligible for Medicaid. You have to be a member of VIA to receive this IDD piece of Money Follows the Person. You live in a state development center, or what we call ICF, intermittent care facility, for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I've been in a psychiatric hospital or a psychiatric residential treatment facility, which is a lot. Psychiatric facility, 6 to 9 to 12 months for youth up to age 21. And you want or need to have a guardian that will move them back into the community. So basically, once you're referred, this starts pre-transition before you move and concludes after a year post-transition. So since 2009, so there's been 151 participants in 32 of our counties, 6 transitioning, 2 preparing for transitioning. Again, either back into a family member or caregiver's home or through the Innovations waiver, which is a separate waiver for individuals that have significant intellectual and developmental disabilities. And there's a wait list for that service. Once you get on the, what we call the waiver, that is for life. And that is a whole separate set of services and funding that you receive if you have a significant intellectual and developmental disability. It's complex.
Angie,
Yes.
are there any restrictions if you have justice involvement?
So some of these programs there are, it really depends, yes. So I'm glad you asked that. At this point right now, I'm not really talking about justice involved individuals. Okay. Transitions to community living. As a lot of you all know, this came out of the Department of Justice settlement in 2012. And as Victoria alluded to earlier with a lot of the hospitals closing down, members going out to the community, how are we going to serve these individuals who have been hospitalized for so long? So basically, again, this is part of the Department of Justice settlement. And you have to have very specific eligibility criteria to meet this program. So this basically connects individuals who have serious mental illness, is what we call it, or severe and persistent mental illness, to apartments and homes where they can live in the community and work, be able to, go to appointments, be able to go to the grocery store, go to their doctor's appointments, and not have to live in an institution. So how that looks right now, we have 32 counties that we serve. There's 4 LME, like VIA, right? We serve 32 counties. There's 3 other LME MCOs that serve the remaining counties, and we are state. We receive state, federal, county, local funding. So right now in our counties, we currently have 775 participants who are housed in the community with TCL support. So of the 775, we were able to pull out 290 of those individuals reside in Buncombe County through TCL. I think I'll stop there on that one. So right now, there's a pause on referrals for TCL for housing due to a lot of the pauses and cuts in federal funding. So at this point, our current members and individuals who are receiving TCL services, their services aren't being cut. Right now, we have to put a pause on new referrals for housing for this program.
Can I add just to recap? So money follows the person. It's important to note that there's not a housing subsidy that goes along with money follows the person. So it's more like the wraparound services and then some additional funds that help folks transition up to a period of time. So that's why Ella and other housing authorities are so key and important, because most of our folks cannot afford, right, whatever fare is anymore, rent, market rents. So that's important. And then with TCL, we do have a subsidy component there. So there's a mix of folks that might have public subsidies, and then there's a mix of folks that are using transition to community living voucher. And given the federal and state budget concerns, where we're at, they're another reason why there's pause.
I'm so glad y'all are here too.
Yeah.
You said they need to receive or be eligible, so they don't have to have Medicaid. It doesn't have to be via Medicaid.
So you have to have Medicaid, or they help you to apply for Medicaid, or we know you. And For some of these programs, you have to have via Medicaid. For some, you can have Medicaid through another tailored plan.
The biggie is just making sure you link to the sources in the PowerPoint, and then, you know, they can help you if you have someone you're working with on the eligibility basis. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's too many nuances.
Back at Home, another initiative here. So Back at Home Helene, this is specific to Buncombe County. So we received this grant soon after Helene, and you can see the top here where we put designed to reduce unsheltered and rural homelessness. These referrals have to go through disaster case management, which is managed by the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. VIA is involved, but we can't make the decision on who is going to be able to qualify. We have meetings and work with them, but the referrals go through the disaster case management. Of course, you can call VIA and start with that to get the information. I want to make that clear. So we were awarded 50 slots. And so we right now are serving 48 head of households, it says, and 27 additional household members. So basically 30 households have been successfully housed to date since we received this in October.
When you say successfully housed, does that mean they've moved back into, I mean, they went through your program and now they're into market rate housing, or they're still in your program?
No,
They are housed in the community with a subsidy in place and with a lease in place as well.
And that happened in May.
So it does, October of 2026, and we've been working with Debbie and Emily with the Homeless Strategy Division, and also Hello will be, and her team, very important, that when the rapid rehousing funds end, that there will be an answer, either if folks are not self-sufficient, then they would be able to hopefully transition to another subsidy, maybe permanent supportive housing if they have a disability documented, or another public subsidy.
Yeah. Okay, this next VIA Independence project. This is specifically a VIA project that we have funded. And as you can see, it just supports up to 10 participants. These are individuals who do not qualify for Medicaid or don't have Medicaid for various reasons. And you can see that out of 10 of these, 9 do reside in Buncombe County. This is closed right now. We don't have any more funding for this at the moment. And I'll do just a quick blurb on, of course, the funding issues that we all are facing. But the individuals that are in this, again, there are justice reentry folks involved in this program, I will say, who are justice involved. And these would be programs or housing that, as Sarah mentioned, that have vouchers. You know, VIA does not create or build any housing. We work with the housing department and other landlords for vouchers and help to secure housing. We do not own or construct housing. Okay, the next one, ISHP, Integrated Supportive Housing. And this is definitely where I'm going to have Sarah kick in and help me with this. But basically, this is where landlords set aside units, and then they receive interest-free loans if they set aside no more than 20% of units that are integrated and for people set aside for people with disabilities. So I'm going to really let Sarah, because I don't know a lot about this piece.
Yeah, you're good. So low-income housing tax credit properties basically is what it is, known as the targeting unit program. And so initially, right when they're applying, submitting, applications and say, so forth, they can set aside 10% for individuals with a disability. But through the Integrated Supportive Housing Program, which is part of the Housing Trust Fund on the state level side of the financial work that we all do, then we can go up to 20%. And so we have partnered with 3 agencies, I think 2 with Mountain Housing Opportunities, and right now it escapes me who the 3rd developer investor is, but to increase the affordable housing opportunities in Buncombe in a set aside, scattered site property from 10% to 20%. So that's been really awesome, right, for our community and folks who need it the most.
Okay, and then the next one are our housing support grants, which are $500. And this is one time, an individual can only receive this one time, is my understanding. And it's per year. And this can help with first month's rent, utilities, security deposits. And it looks like we supported 16 Buncombe County residents last year for this.
That'd be used for transitional housing or sober living?
So it cannot.
No?
Years ago, it could, but then there was some challenges there. And so now we have to restrict it to permanent housing only with a list in place.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Justice Reentry Program that we have. You can go ahead, Vanessa. So, we do have Justice Reentry Services, meaning we have care managers that specifically work with the Department of Corrections, with social workers who work at the facilities. So if you are incarcerated at one of the prisons here in North Carolina and you have a severe mental illness, this is when you're getting ready to be discharged, severe persistent mental illness, violent conviction, sex offender registry, or you're on an antipsychotic medication like clozapine. This, the DAC social workers call VIA specifically to our Justice Reentry Program to refer these individuals for care management upon release. And so these individuals who are leaving incarceration, this isn't immediate housing, I want to say again. This is case management, which helps in linking to trying to help find housing, trying to help link to behavioral health, to your medical appointments, a care manager that stays with this individual to help link them to these services. I'm going to stop right there and see if anyone has questions about what I just said about the Justice Reentry. I would imagine so. I don't have it today, but I'll make a note of that. Okay. Yeah, I can't, I will find out. So yes, I think we have 4 care managers that work on that team that are assigned Justice Reentry to link folks for that. Now, next slide. So another piece of that is that for many years, we've always had this service, and now we're starting to keep data around this through our member recipient line, which is our 800 line that's open 24/7. So we do have social workers, DAC social workers call us to set appointments, pre-discharge. So anyone who is incarcerated that they have identified that has any type of a mental illness, substance use need, intellectual developmental disability need, they'll call VIA. And our member recipient services will work in getting them linked to appointments. And then we'll follow up as well upon post-discharge, not the care management piece, that's a different piece with the Justice Reentry, but with anyone who's been discharged to ensure that they have made it to their appointment. They'll follow up with probation officers as well to ensure that they are helping to link the individuals to their appointments. Real quickly. Okay, so I thought I'd throw this slide in here at the end because I just really like to talk about our co-responders and the great data that we have around that. So and I showed this at the commissioner meeting, but this is for Q1 of 2026. So we had 189 referrals to co-responders. 38% of those were linked to behavioral health appointments. The big one was there was 1 arrest out of 189 referrals. 78% diversion from the ED.
Okay, but when we're saying co-responder, that's referring to the county's program?
The sheriff office program.
Okay, remind me, because we use that language at the city for so it's a specific thing that you guys are talking about. What is it?
So the co-response program is something that was started a few years back with the sheriff's department, sheriff's office. So Sergeant Freeborn leads that, and there are 2 deputies. And then VIA received an allocation for a safety grant allocation to help fund the mental health piece of that. So RHA works in conjunction with the sheriff's office with 2 of these deputies to provide leads, clinician leads, who go out 8 to 8, Monday through Friday, to work with them. So our allocation only funds the RHA responders, not the sheriff's office piece. So it hasn't expanded, it's maintained, it's 5-day.
When we're talking about it, we're just thinking about the sheriffs, which doesn't serve the city of Asheville, the largest population center.
So the city's co-responder program is a little bit different. You
Right,
understand.
that's
So
what I'm kind of like, can ours hang out too? Cause we have a whole similar program. I know that I'm opening a.
They do work with, so they,
Let's
the
can of
co-response does work with APD and officers and will help respond or community, but I think that's another level
I guess
of.
I'm just trying to open up a thing of like, this is a community collaborative. It'd be really.
It's on the board.
To work where integrating. Despite the.
Since you opened it, we will happily accept that invite.
Yes, it's here. It's on our strategic plan and also the other conversation is around looking to the other police departments in the county and seeing if there's interest there. So really looking
Andy, did you have anything?
I'm gonna
you
go
wanted
back to not talking in these meetings.
No,
Everybody
no.
knows.
It's
Like everything I wanna say, but I'm just not. I'd like to end on a positive note, but I do like to be transparent, let folks know, that we have received a $9 million reduction via HAS, what we call state funds. And this happens, every year, the General Assembly. It's our funding that helps to cover services for individuals who don't receive Medicaid, because part of who we serve are individuals who, for certain reasons, don't qualify for Medicaid. So we are able to be a little more flexible with what we call single stream funding. We just had a recent $9 million reduction. And so I just say that to this group to say, this can be limiting, to VIA, for expanding state funded services, and opportunities to strengthen provider reimbursement rates. Because as we see, the Medicaid reimbursement rates are being cut. That was enacted on October 1st. And, with the state funds that we receive, sometimes we're able to help come in and help boost up a little bit. But that is going to be a little more challenging this year because of that reduction as well. And if you have any questions, let me know and I'm happy to answer some.
Thank you, Angie. And I'm going to push back on that being positive. So thank you for entrenching that portion. But I think it highlights the importance of us talking about where the shortcomings are going to come from for that first state and what our county can do to kind of offset how that impacts our community. So it sounds great to keep digging into. As y'all can see, we are running a little bit behind on time. So I'm probably going to have to table most of the rest of the things here, Sybil, unless you absolutely wanted to give an update. But to kind of breeze us through, unless anyone felt strongly, just want to signal what we're going to do in the future. One of the things that I wanted to be able to take to County Commission is our potential name change, as we're kind of changing our entity. That requires more than just our will because it was implemented by resolution. So absent anyone feeling strongly about it, I was hoping to rename this collaboratively to a Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to be more consistent with what our federal partners are doing and what they recommend for best practice, rather than being an advisory or dictatorial kind of sentiment to it. This is really just enabling people to do their jobs better. And that's kind of how I see the direction of JRAC having steered toward for the past few months, but open to thoughts on that. But that really just kind of brings us in line with national best practice.
Are we doing the thumbs up?
Oh, yeah, you can.
Anybody? Snap.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll feel comfortable taking that to the commissioners, and please do jazz hands at our next meeting.
Forevermore.
Sorry, we're gonna come back, if you don't mind, and kind of rehash some of the VHJC stuff, but I think that might be a good second meeting, maybe even special meeting in January, if y'all want to dive in and kind of talk about FIO's interaction there. And Maggie's given us a whole new topic that we can delve into, so thank you for doing so.
Yeah, my department.
Deputy Chief's not mad at you yet.
Do this while we have an interim chief.
No comment on that one.
Yeah, no problem.
And in the future, you can kind of see how the agenda is going to look. Unless someone feels strongly, I kind of like this format of making sure that we have all of our partners at the table, district court, superior court, sheriff's office, DA. Everybody has an opportunity to kind of weigh in, and certainly want to put Asheville Police Department on that list as well, just to make sure everyone has a space at the table to really kind of echo what things may be coming up month by month. And that might not even be enough for some of our criminal justice spaces, because things change a lot more quickly than month by month. But anything we can do to make sure we're more responsive to the needs of our community seems like a good idea. So we'll spare the community program update for another day. Required to have public comment. Is there anyone here who's not a part of JRAC who wants to offer public comment? Not to put you on the spot, Rita, but. Well, we'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn, and with the understanding, I may ask to see if people will mind coming back for a January meeting. Sorry, Sybil. Please.
Real quick, those of you that don't know, introduce Ella Santos and
Marvin Jean-Jacques.
Yeah. I knew Marvin, I wasn't gonna butcher your last, I haven't done it last name. But Ella and Marvin are both our new CEO for the Asheville
Nice to meet you.
Housing Authority and COO, Marvin Housing Authority too, so I want to thank you for allowing them to be here today. I think it's important for them to have a seat at the table.
I'm very grateful you're here, and when you show up once, that probably means you're gonna have to come back. So
Yeah, absolutely.
if you're being voluntold, please come again.
Yes.
And as we're restructuring, some of the things that you'll see during our other changes portion is gonna be a bylaws update, as well as looking at who else we need at the table, and your presence is fortuitous or well-planned. In either event, welcome, and please stay with us. We need your support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we will definitely be here to support. And if there's anything that we can do to help and ways that we can collaborate to strengthen the community, that would be great too.
Grateful for you.
Thank you.
Any other things for the good of the group? If not, I'm gonna be around for a minute, picking a couple of y'all's brains. All right, we will adjourn. Thank you all. Have a great holiday break.
I brought a one-page flyer. This has a number. If you're just gonna take it, so if you have questions, you can call by and ask about how. Bicycle.